Hola, estudiantes. It's time for another action-packed screencast to explain answering questions in Spanish. So we're studying verb conjugation, and the important thing about verb conjugation is really to pay special attention to the ending of the verb in Spanish. And if you can connect those endings to who's doing the action, then really the next step is to be able to answer questions, because you can apply that action to who's doing the action. The problem with this is going to be, as I've told you guys a whole bunch of times, English. Knowing how to answer questions in English is actually going to get in the way. It's going to make this more difficult for you. So I'm going to start by explaining the main differences. Okay, so let's scroll over. So when we talk about questions in English, you speak Spanish is a statement. It's something that you do. In order to make this into a question, we have to add this random word here. Why do we do that? I don't know. It's an English thing. What does do mean? It doesn't mean anything. You couldn't walk up to somebody and just say, do, because that doesn't make any sense. Basically what it is an indication that there's a question coming. Do you speak Spanish? We always raise our voice at the end. Excuse me. But we have to put that do there. Further complicating the process, we could also say, you speak Spanish? Like this here. With a surprise, we raise our voice and we don't put the do. How complex is that? Imagine trying to learn English and explaining that to someone. You have to put do, but not if you're really surprised. That doesn't make any sense. We also talk here about when we put it into third person, we say he speaks Spanish. Okay? And we actually do a little mini verb conjugation there in English. We put the S on to speak. He speaks Spanish. Now look what happens when we make it into a question. Does he speak Spanish? Where does that come from? Does means nothing. Again, it's just an indication that a question is coming up. So you see in English we have a whole bunch of moving parts, and sometimes we change the verb and sometimes we don't. But if we're really surprised, we don't really need to put the do or does. So it's pretty confusing. Spanish, you can see, is much, much easier. Hablas español. You don't even need to put the to if you don't want to, because hablas already means you speak. So, hablas español means you speak. Hablas español is now a question. All you have to do is put an upside down question mark at the beginning and a regular question mark at the end, and now you have a question. There is no verb conjugation, there are no added words. So note that you do not translate do or does. You don't have to translate that. And that's actually how I can tell if you're using Google Translate, because people are going to try to translate do you speak Spanish, and the verb to do is a different verb and it shouldn't be there. All you have to do to make a question in Spanish is put question marks around it. Here's the same example with the third person. Habla español means he speaks Spanish or she speaks Spanish. That's a statement. To make it a question, all we do is put the upside down question mark at the beginning, put the regular question mark at the end, and we ask it like a question. Habla español, right? We raise the voice at the end. And that means, does he speak Spanish? Or does she speak Spanish? There are no other words that we have to put in. How easy is that compared to English? There really are no rules other than you have to ask it and make it sound like a question and put the question marks there. It's the same verb. You don't have to change anything. So, you see why verb conjugation is so important in knowing the endings of those verbs and who's doing the action. Because if you know that, then you can answer questions, which is really the fundamental ability of being able to speak a language. So let's continue on with some examples. Get it set up here. A little smaller. There we go. So, first question. hablas español, and you can see I put two there. You don't even need it because hablas español means do you speak Spanish? Hablas tú español still means do you speak Spanish? So let me zoom in here so I can write a little bit better. Do you speak Spanish? So let's answer yes. Sí. Hablo español. And we have to say hablo because it's what I do. Do you speak Spanish? Yes, I speak Spanish. And I know my handwriting is still terrible. Just as bad as in real life. I can't help it. So, ¿hablas tú español? Sí, hablo español. Yes, I speak Spanish. And you don't even need the yo, right? Because hablo means I speak, yo hablo means I speak. But this is where knowing correct verb conjugation comes in. We have the same question two more times, but it's asking about different people, so we cannot answer it the same way. ¿Hablan ustedes español? Some of you still don't know what this means. Ustedes means you guys. So you got to know that. You have to know your subject pronouns as well. Do you guys speak Spanish? ¿Hablan ustedes español? It's now asking about more than one person. So let's answer it. Let's say, this wouldn't make any sense because you're responding in Spanish, but let's make it negative just for example. No hablamos español. So I just responded, no, we don't speak Spanish. Excuse me again. The reason we need two no's is because we need two no's in English as well. No, we do not. Those are two no's. No, we don't. Two no's. So that's why you have to put two no's like that in Spanish. The reason we have to put hablamos is because it's asking about more than one person. Do you guys? No, we don't. So this is where verb conjugation comes in. You have to change the ending to the verb to the correct person who's doing the action. In this case, we are not speaking Spanish. Like I said, it doesn't make any sense. Do you guys speak Spanish? No, we don't speak Spanish. Answered in perfect Spanish. Now this is probably the toughest one, but it's the most clear example. ¿Habla el señor Vangel español? Does Mr. Vangel speak Spanish? See how that does come in there? We have to do that in English. It's really hard to explain that to somebody who doesn't speak English. Where does does come from? But since in this case, habla means he speaks, but if you put question marks around it, means does he speak, we can answer and we'll say yes, because of course I speak Spanish. Zoom in a little bit. Sí habla español. I have to scroll. Still getting the hang of this app. So in this particular case, we don't even have to change the verb. Does Mr. Vangel speak? Habla means he speaks. Or it could mean does he speak? So in the question, it means does he speak? And in the answer, it means he speaks. Again, this is why verb conjugation and knowing the endings and how it ties to who's doing the action is so important. So the next few assignments that I'm going to give you today and for the rest of the week are going to include answering questions because it's really the best practice. And don't forget, we're only on AR, present tense verbs. You should not have any ER endings right now. And we're only in present tense. There are a lot of tenses in Spanish. Past tense works the same way. You don't have to translate did. Future tense works the same way. You don't have to say, will you do? You don't have to translate will. Okay, it's all has to do with the ending in Spanish. It's so important to get familiar with those verb conjugations and get them down. So that's it for now. I hope that helped you understand how to answer questions. Contestar preguntas en español. If you have questions for me, send me a message on Schoology, send me an email, anything you need. Okay, buena suerte means good luck, and hasta luego.